Today we're going to talk about TB500 because people talk about it like it has a cape. Recovery, repair, mobility, injury support, the Wolverine stack, which is BPC 157 and TB500 together. And I understand why people are interested. When someone has a shoulder that has been angry for 6 months or a knee that feels like it files complaints every time you take the stairs, they're not exactly excited to hear the same rest, rehab, time, stop doing the things that make it worse, which is the responsible answer, but it's also boring. So TB500 obviously sounds way more interesting. So let's talk about what it actually is. So TB500 is discussed as a fragment that's related to thymosin beta-4. So thymosin beta-4 is a peptide that's found naturally in your body, and it's involved in repair-related biology. The major things are cell movement, actin regulation, wound repair, inflammation, blood vessel formation, and then tissue remodeling. And that's the reason why people are interested. It's obviously not random. The repair stories come from actual real biology, but the real biology is not the same thing as inject this and your tendon's going to be new. And that's where the internet basically starts drinking its own bathwater. The easiest way to understand TB500 is this. It's discussed because it may influence the environments around repair, not because it's some little tiny construction worker dude working with a hard hat on rebuilding your rotator cuff. Tissue repair is a very, very complicated thing. Cells have to move into the area. You have to manage inflammation. Your blood supply is a big deal. You have to organize collagen. And then the tissue has to remodel itself over time. So your load does matter. Rehab matters. Your age, your sleep, your diet, your hormones, your blood sugar, your training, and the injury itself matters. But there isn't a heal button. If there were, every orthopedic surgeon would be unemployed and every CrossFit gym would have a peptide vending machine next to all the chalk buckets. So TB500 gets attention because thymosin beta-4 related research touches on repair pathways, and cell migration is a big one. When tissues are injured, cells have to move where they're needed. That's part of the repair process. Actin regulation is another piece, and actin is basically a part of the cell's internal structure, and like its movement machinery. Again, it's boring biology, but it's important. And then you have angiogenesis. That means new blood vessel formation. So after an injury setting, better blood supply is obviously useful because damaged tissues need oxygen, nutrients, and then all of the signaling molecules that come with it. So inflammation modulation, too much inflammation can keep tissue irritated and dysfunctional. And so the interest in TB500 is understandable. The theory is not stupid. The marketing is, because people make the jump too big. It goes from this pathway is involved in tissue repair to this peptide healed my injury. And that's not the same claim. If pain goes down, that's real to the person that's feeling it. And if mobility improves, that obviously matters as well. If someone tolerates rehab better because they're less irritated, that's obviously useful. That doesn't automatically prove that tissue is regenerated. A tendon can feel better before it's stronger. A joint can hurt less while the underlying problem still exists. A muscle strain can improve because time passed, load changed, inflammation dropped, you slept better, or because you stopped doing dumb things for 2 weeks. So the progress is real, but the proof is different. And that's where I think TB500 needed to be explained better. It may support repair-related pathways. It may help some people feel better. It may reduce irritation enough for better movement and rehab. But if someone says it definitely repaired their tendon, I'd like to know exactly how they proved that. Was there imaging? Was it function that improved objectively? Was it loading controlled? Did you do rehab consistently? What else did you change, right? Scientific method. Or did it just feel better and now the story became more dramatic every time you're telling it? Because that happens too. Humans are terrible scientists when the injury is their own shoulder. Now, the Wolverine stack is where it gets even messier. BPC 157 and TB are often stacked together because people are trying to cover multiple of the repair pathways. And BPC has more of an original gut and inflammation story, whereas TB500 is discussed more around tissue repair, the cell migration, angiogenesis, and remodeling. But put them together, and the internet calls it the Wolverine stack, which is a great name if your goal is to make grown men stop thinking critically. The name makes it sound like the result is guaranteed, and it's not. Stacking two experimental compounds doesn't magically create stronger human evidence. It may create a more interesting theory, which is what we're hearing, and it may create a lot more anecdotal reports, but it also creates a lot more unknowns. And that's the part no one wants to put on their TikTok graphic or their buy your peptides from me thing. But this is where we move into tumor growth concerns. Not as the entire video, obviously, but it's absolutely a serious part of the TB500 conversation. And the concern comes from the exact same biology that people are excited about. Cell migration, angiogenesis, tissue remodeling, and those are useful ideas in wound repair. They are relevant in cancer biology. Tumors can use blood vessel formation. Tumors can use cell migration. Tumors can use remodeling signals. So the concern is not TB500 definitely causes cancer, because it's way too strong of a claim, but the more accurate concern is if you're using a compound because it may influence blood vessel formation, cell movement, repair signaling, you should be very careful. And anyone with an active cancer, recent cancer, unknown suspicions, symptoms of it, abnormal imaging, a family history of it, that's literally the adult version. If you have tumor risk or don't know that you have no tumors, you shouldn't just be injecting TB500. This is especially important because the people using the Wolverine stack and TB500 are not getting evaluated. They're not ruling it out. They're not reviewing cancer history. They're not talking through the red flags because the people that they're buying it from shouldn't even be selling it. They're just ordering the peptides online, and they're treating contraindications like a customer service problem because they're not doctors. And that's not okay. If someone has unexplained weight loss, unexplained bleeding, a lump persistent, night sweats, abnormal imaging, a recent cancer history, or they're way behind on any of their basic screenings you would get with age, that all needs to be handled before you start playing with repair signaling peptides. And no, like I feel fine is not a screening plan. Tumors don't announce themselves with a song and dance. They don't stand on a box and yell. They're quiet, and that's why the screening actually exists. The irony is that the tumor conversation is not separate from TB500. It's connected to the reason people want TB500 in the first place. The pitch is this may help tissue repair by influencing all of these things. Then the risk conversation has to include what happens if the wrong tissue is being helped. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. It's just not being reckless. So talking about evidence, there isn't any FDA approvals for injury repair or tendon healing. It hasn't been approved for pain or muscle recovery. There aren't even really going to be research that happens to try and prove any of those things. The human evidence that we have is good, but it's nowhere near as strong as the marketing for the people that are trying to sell it to you. And a lot of what people cite comes from thymosin beta-4 research, which is usually animal models, wound healing studies, and then like lab data. And it's interesting. And some of it's going to probably turn into better human applications. But the current marketplace is way ahead of the evidence. And that's the problem. And with injectable peptides, your sourcing matters, obviously. Purity matters, sterility matters, making sure dosing is accurate. And then peptide impurities are a big thing. You know, immunogenicity matters. It's not like you're buying creatine. If the creatine is bad, maybe it tastes like drywall and you wasted money. If an injectable peptide is contaminated or it's mislabeled or it's underdosed, overdosed, impure, not sterile, it's a completely different category of stupid. The body has very strong opinions about stuff you inject in it, and you should respect that. So how should someone actually think about TB500? Think of it as an investigational repair signaling peptide. The interest around cell migration, inflammation modulation, and etc. Is important. And it's, the reason people are using it is obviously injury recovery, mobility, maybe soft tissue irritation, or even pain patterns that are irritating. But the causation is the pathways that are useful to those is concerning in cancer biology. And the evidence gap is that obviously not enough human information has caught up to the way people talk about it online. So not just risk, but also not just hype. You need to talk about the whole thing. And TB500 is interesting, and it's going to be useful in the right setting someday. And I would say I'm sure people feel better genuinely while using it. But it shouldn't be treated like a casual recovery supplement. And like the Wolverine stack shouldn't be treated like a shortcut around proper evaluations or diagnosis or rehab or common sense. If something hurts, you need to figure out what it is. If something is torn, it needs to be diagnosed. If cancer screening is overdue, don't ignore that while taking compounds that are tied to these types of pathways that may stimulate any of that cancer growth. And if someone's going to use it, they should understand why people are interested, what's still unproven, and why the cancer, like tumor growth concern exists. It's not dangerous, but it's also not just healing, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And that's an interesting mechanism that people are interested in. It's got a lot of big claims, but there needs to be real caution. And that's exactly where people kind of need to slow down and think about what they're doing and why.